Hello, folks. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Jeff Goodwin, known as Dr. Jeff from Win Good Sports. Thank you for participating in today's podcast. Today's topic is the use of optimization in golf and my preparation as a caddy. Although my examples are primarily from experiences that apply to the Korn Ferry Tour and PGA Tour, in which rangefinder devices and green reading materials are not allowed, optimization can be used at any level. Before discussing the specifics of optimization in golf as a caddy, let's first introduce what it is. The purpose of optimization is to find the best possible solution to a problem by systematically searching for the combination of variables that maximizes or minimizes an objective function while satisfying constraints. It answers questions like, what is the best course of action given certain conditions and objectives? The output of optimization is a specific set of decisions or values that maximize or minimize the objective function while adhering to the constraints. It provides a concrete plan of action. Optimization is used in various fields such as supply chain management, logistics, resource allocation, scheduling, and portfolio optimization. It helps organizations make the most efficient use of resources, allocate budgets effectively, and solve complex decision-making problems. Now, I will talk about optimization and its implication to golf. From the book, Every Shot Counts, Using the Revolutionary Strokes Gained Approach to Improve Your Golf Performance and Strategy, Dr. Brody writes, quote, optimization is used to find the best decision among a number of alternatives. It can be used to find the best portfolio for a hedge fund or the best route for delivering goods to the market. And it can be used to find the best strategy for a golfer to achieve the lowest score. Golf is a series of risk-reward trade-offs. Should I be conservative or aggressive on this shot? What strategy will lead to my lowest score? Optimization is like a smart caddy who can search through a range of possible decisions, assess the cost or benefit of each, and then recommend the best choice. End quote. Optimization in golf strategy to shoot the lowest scores involves making the most efficient and strategic decisions throughout a round of golf to minimize strokes and improve your overall performance. Here are several key aspects of optimization in golf strategy for achieving lower scores. Club selection. Choose the right club for each shot based on factors like distance to the target, wind conditions, elevation changes, and hazards. Optimization involves selecting clubs that give you the best chance of reaching your target with minimal strokes. Shot placement. Aim your shots strategically to maximize your chances of landing in the fairway or on the green. Avoiding hazards and positioning your ball for the next shot is crucial for optimizing your chances of scoring well. Course management. Optimize your course management by considering the risk-reward trade-offs, determining when to take conservative shots and when to take calculated risk, especially on par 5s and challenging par fours. Green reading. When on the green, take the time to read the contours and slopes to optimize your putting strategy. Aim for the optimal line and speed to sink putts consistently. Shot strategy. Develop a strategic approach for each hole. Consider your strengths and weaknesses and plan your shots accordingly. Risk management. Evaluate risk carefully, especially when facing difficult shots or challenging situations. Determine whether the potential reward justifies the risk, and make the decision that minimizes potential damage to your score. Practice and preparation. Optimize your practice sessions by focusing on areas of your game that need improvement. Work on your weaknesses to become a more rounded golfer. Optimizing your golf strategy to shoot lower scores involves a combination of technical skill, course management, mental discipline, and data-driven decision-making. By constantly making smart, well-informed choices on the course, you can work toward achieving your goal of lowering your golf scores. My job as a caddy is to help the player shoot the lowest score possible. My job starts before I arrive at the golf tournament. It's about pre-tournament preparation. 1. I research the golf course to be played. I use the yardages for each hole to estimate the player's approach shots, and I send that information to the player to practice for the tournament. Because I am a copious note taker, I also have proximity to the hole the player is averaging at that point in the season, along with how that ranks on the PGA Tour. To do this, I keep detailed records during golf rounds, tracking performance on each hole, club selection, yardages, and putting statistics to identify areas for improvement. 2. I use a golf app to obtain information on club selection for tee shots and determine if it is beneficial to hit a driver or 3-wood or hybrid or iron. I study the strokes gain metric for each club based on how far the tee shot is expected to travel. I am comparing this information in conjunction to the obstacles on the hole. For example, bunkers, water hazards, out of bounds, etc. I then determine the expected score for each distance from each club to help determine the approach shot strategy. If the player has access to a TrackMan or GC Quad, then I will ask the player to send me data so it can be uploaded so I can examine the player's dispersion pattern for each hole that will be played. 3. I've researched past hole locations used in previous years. I then use a golf app to get a sense of contours and slopes of the greens for each hole. 4. I examine the weather forecast for practice rounds and tournament days to understand how different holes may play, and if the weather, specifically wind direction, is going to be consistent or not for the week. Let me be clear. Those items just mentioned are completed before I ever arrive at a golf tournament. For me, it's about planning and preparation. I am a detailed-oriented caddy. My primary goal is to help the player shoot the lowest score possible. I am developing a strategic approach for each hole. I am developing a concrete plan of action for what is the best course of action for each hole. In a perfect scenario, I am trying to predict and quantify every shot the player will hit on the golf course. This includes such things as factoring in elevation and how far the golf ball travels in different conditions. I have a table that adjusts yardages by distance at different elevations. This includes factoring in wind strength. I have a table that differentiates wind strength for both tailwind, downwind, and headwind into. I want to know the carry distance for each club, and I calculate the mean and standard deviation, the variability, for each. I have a table with that information too. Why this approach? I am trying to minimize the decision-making process on the course so the player can play the best golf possible. I am trying to predict what should happen on each golf hole before I ever arrive at a golf tournament. Once at the golf tournament, then I must juggle a couple of responsibilities. My primary responsibility is to be available to the player. I must be available for when the player wants to practice or when the player wants to play practice rounds. As I tell the player, you do you, and I will adjust. But also understand that I need time to do us. What does that actually mean? First, I need to register as a caddy at registration and get the approved yardage book. I then need time to doctor up the approved yardage book from the information I have already collected. I then want time to walk the golf course, preferably alone, to validate what I have projected as what should happen is indeed correct. In most cases, what should happen is correct with no changes. However, there are times when there may be something that wasn't accounted for in the pre-tournament preparation. For example, a particular hole plays 15 yards downhill or uphill. I then adjust my what should happen when new information comes available. I'm also determining start lines, targets for the tee shots so that information can be shared in practice rounds. Most importantly, I need time to learn the golf course. Rarely will a round of golf go as planned. I have already determined what should happen. Now I am trying to figure out what could happen. What should and what could have very different meanings. It is my responsibility to learn each golf hole as what could happen. For example, the rough may be less severe on one side of the fairway as opposed to the other side. I must know that information. What are the yardages from particular areas if no sprinkler heads are available? I must know that information. If the player misses long on an approach shot, how severe is the rough behind the green? I must know that information. Missing in some bunkers can be a better outcome than others. I must know that information. A very time-consuming part of all of this is rolling golf balls on each green. I normally have hole locations from the previous year as a guideline. Sometimes I have hole locations from prior years too. I use this information to roll golf balls to each hole location to understand the tilt of the surface for different areas of a green. This learning process is to minimize the decision-making process during a tournament round. The more knowledgeable I am as a caddy should be a benefit to the player. It is my responsibility to be knowledgeable. There will be adversity on the golf course. As I said, rarely does a golf round go as planned. As I have already said, my primary goal as a caddy is to help the player shoot the lowest score possible. To do that, I must understand what should happen and what could happen for each hole. In an ideal situation, I have already walked the golf course prior to the practice rounds. Each player is different in how they treat their practice rounds. As a caddy, I look at it as mock exam day, a time to determine any deficiencies in my preparation to help the player, a time to solidify the game plan so it can be finalized for when the real exam counts, the tournament rounds. I am going to finalize start lines, targets for tee shots with the player. I am going to track every shot the player hits and the outcome of those shots. I want to know club selection and yardage to determine if the golf ball is traveling the distance it should be or if an adjustment needs to be made. I am going to have the player hit certain shots around the greens, which may be needed, specifically from long approach shots. I'm also going to have the player putt to different hole locations that have been used in the past. The point of all of this is to put the player in the best position to have the lowest score on each hole when the tournament starts. One of my biggest frustrations this past season was when the player hit a tee shot into a bunker on a par 3 and then complained about the lack of sand compared to other bunkers on the course. Although that is a valid criticism by the player, I also view it as poor planning, and that is on me as a caddy. I should have insisted the player hit from certain bunkers during the practice rounds so we would have known about the inconsistent sand. Hole locations on Korn Ferry Tour are normally released the night before the round. I mark them in the approved yardage book and determine how much they differentiate from prior years. I am interested to know if there is anything unexpected that we did not prepare for. On tournament days, I like to walk the golf course before the round. I normally ask the player if there is anything specific he would like to know. I am specifically interested to see how par 3s are playing. I determine the tee yardage to the front of the green and pin when I am out there walking. I'm also interested in how the ball reacts on the greens. That is a tee shot holding or releasing, combined with the difficulty of getting up and down from different areas. On the more difficult par 4s, I'm interested in how the ball reacts on the green from the fairway and from the rough. Some caddies are willing to share the information they have obtained, so I'm always willing to listen. Most caddies walk some holes prior to the round, yet some caddies do minimal walking. I had a caddy tell me he was going to walk a couple of holes. I later found out he walked from hole 9 green to hole 10 tee box, they were right beside each other, back to hole 9 green, and then back to hole 10 tee box. That was his pre-round preparation to help the player. I find walking the course prior to the round to be valuable time spent, but I've also done this to my detriment. This past summer at TPC Colorado, I made the decision to walk the front 9. It was my intent to catch a shuttle back to the clubhouse. Once I finished walking the front 9, there were no shuttles available, so I was forced to walk back into the clubhouse. I ended up walking 14,000 steps before our round ever started. I walked over 30,000 steps that day. It's funny now, but not so much then. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. Please visit the website wingoodsports.com to learn more about Win Good Sports and the services offered. I offer services in data analytics, if interested. I can help with tournament preparation using optimization, if interested. I am also available to Caddie if you are wanting a detailed-oriented individual who will work with you to post the lowest score possible. If you have questions or comments, then please use the Contact Win Good Sports link from the website. Simply send a message using the contact form. Stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy the journey of life and golf. Cheers.